check. All right. Did you give me a thumbs up? I'm sorry. Okay. Hey, good evening, everybody. That's terrible, but I appreciate you being here. That's better. That's better. That's better. Thanks you for everybody watching online on Facebook and YouTube. We're so glad to have you guys here with us. We want to encourage you to invite people to pray, and we'll be focusing on prayer tonight. I'm a little loud up here, Tommy. I'm a little high. I do want to say a thank you. While I was gone to New Mexico, Miss Janice Johnson passed away, one of our longtime members. She was here long before I ever got here and had been faithful until she couldn't go anymore. And so I thank you, Michael, and all those. I know you announced it Sunday morning. You announced the funeral Sunday night. Thank you, Ursula, for doing that. Y'all announcing it, making sure everybody got the news out on Sunday that the funeral was going to be Monday. I appreciate that, or Tuesday rather, to get people. And it was a great crowd. A lot of people came to that funeral and really honored Miss Janice in a great way. And so thank y'all for handling that in my absence. It's great to know that all that got handled well. And thank you for feeding the family. And so I speak on their behalf and just saying how much they appreciate you doing that and how you minister to them in a difficult time. They'd never known a day without Miss Janice there. Nobody in that family had. So it was just a very new experience for them that they did not want. So thank you for ministering to them. And then next Wednesday night, we will not be back at Bible study because, believe it or not, it's time for another business meeting. And so we will be here for a fellowship meal at 5 p.m. over in the ministry building. And then we'll be over here at 6 p.m. for the business meeting. So don't forget that. 5 p.m. meal, 6 p.m. business meeting over here. We look forward to doing that. And I know there's still practice on Wednesday nights for a few more weeks at least until the program on the 28th, I believe. The 5th. I'm on the 28th. Got it. On the 5th. Got it. So on the 5th of July, we'll have that program. That's good. And then this Sunday, we'll have, of course, Sunday School Bible Study at 10 a.m. And then our Sunday morning worship gathering. We'll be back in the Word of God. And then on Sunday night, we'll have discipleship training starting at 5 p.m. And then at 6 p.m. will be our report on the New Mexico mission trip. You will not want to miss it. It was really an incredible trip, and it was an incredible opportunity. Lots of different things occurred, but it was a wonderful time, and they will share everything about that. Thank you for supporting them in prayer and financing as they were able to go, dealing with all the crazy things that happened. So you want to be here Sunday night for that. Then, of course, the June newsletter is available. So I hope that you'll pick up a copy. Lots of information in there. You got a calendar. There's a prayer guide in there for missionaries. So you need to make sure you pick one of those up. And then, of course, there's opportunity for ministry. People say, I want to get involved. There's two easy ways to get involved. First of all is a greeter ministry. It's outreach. It's encouragement where you're serving outside or inside, depending on what you would like to do. Men or women can serve on this. Students can serve on this. It's fun. Where you're outside helping people get in, guests especially, and then inside you're handing out bulletins and newsletters here in the vestibule and over in the by the air conditioners. So what a great ministry that is. And there's the usher ministry, where you're taking up the offering. Those are easy, very little training involved. But yet you can serve and have a big impact if that's something that you feel led to do. Doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter your health. We can use you no matter how you're feeling. You can hand out a bulletin and make somebody's day. That'll be great. Also, the prayer list is up here. If you have any changes, if you want to mark someone off the prayer list, you'll have this opportunity. And if you want to add someone on the prayer list, you can do. If you're watching online, you can comment. And to add someone on the prayer list, we would appreciate that. We'll make sure they are prayed for. With that being said, we're going to do something a little bit different tonight. We're not going to go back into Kings yet, talking about Elijah. I have a responsibility as a pastor to update you on the Southern Baptist Convention. The Southern Baptist Convention took place in Orlando, Florida, Tuesday and Wednesday. The pastors' conference was Sunday night and Monday, and the actual meetings were Tuesday and Wednesday. And we are a Southern Baptist church, and so those things impact us, and so you need to be informed on what went on. So I'm going to give you about 8 updates on what took place and then answer any questions you've got. So if you have any questions, some of them are just statistics that were given, information, so we'll go ahead and get into that. First of all, every 2 years, basically, you elect a new president. Most people have no idea who the president is of the Southern Baptist Convention. This year, it was a man named Clint Presley, and he used to be pastor in Mobile. He's not anymore. He's pastor in the Charlotte area. But the new president is a man named Willie Rice. He is the pastor at Calvary Baptist Church in Clearwater, Florida. However, from 1984 to 1987, he pastored Bethel Baptist Church in Dora. So not very far from here he pastored, and he graduated from Samford University, so he does have some Alabama connections, but he will be the new president. He pretty much kind of sets the agenda for the convention for about 2 years and leads the meetings, and so he will do a lot of speaking and so forth. So that's one thing. Second thing was Albert Moeller, who is the president of Southern Seminary. That's in Louisville, Kentucky. That's one of your 6 seminaries that you support with your cooperative program giving. He's the president. He's the longest president we have so far of the seminary. He offered an amendment to the Constitution, the bylaws, which we have our bylaws, and that constitutes who we are as a church. The Southern Baptist Convention also has bylaws that constitute who is an SBC church, and so there was an amendment that he proposed. Now, amendments are interesting things in the Southern Baptist Convention. They must be voted on 2 years in a row. They must pass the first year and pass the second year. This is the first year that this particular amendment went through, and it has to pass by a 2/3 vote. The particular amendment that we're going to talk about has been in some way or another presented in the last few years but would not pass. So this time it was this amendment. I'm going to read it for you. That churches who are part of the Southern Baptist Convention do not act to affirm, appoint, or endorse a woman serving in the office or function of a pastor, elder, overseer, specifically preaching to the assembled congregation. You may have seen something on that on the news. That was on, of course, CNN had it, and MSNBC had it, and they had a lot of stuff about it. But it basically means a man needs to be the pastor of a church. Southern Baptist Convention, that's how it should be. And so they could not get that passed as an amendment, but this time they reworded it a little bit. So you had at the convention 11,671 messengers. And you only had 8,074 voting on this particular issue. So of all the 4.5 million Southern Baptists, you had 8,000 voting. And 6,028, that's 76%, voted to affirm the amendment. 2,026, that's 24%, voted against the amendment. So by the bylaw rules, the amendment passed. But that doesn't make it official. It has to be voted again in Indianapolis next year, and it has to be voted 2/3 or more. So there'll be a lot of talking and all that about that. And so that was a big news story that passed, but nothing really happened. It's got to pass again next year. So that's how it would work. Any questions on that? Oh, that's a big issue. You may have seen something on the news about it. Anybody got a question? No? Okay. Does not act to affirm, appoint, or endorse a woman serving in the office or function of a pastor, elder, overseer, specifically as to preaching to the assembled congregation. And that passed 76% to 24%. Any other questions about that? Yes. Well, they really don't change someone's mind. What they really were doing was trying to make sure that all Southern Baptist churches had male pastors. That was not the case about 5 years ago. And so they discovered that, and they were trying to rectify that, and it has not gone well. And so this is the first year they were able to vote over the threshold of 66% to pass that. So they have it started to have a credentials committee, the Southern Baptist Convention does. And so what can happen is if you see a church that you think has someone on there who is a woman pastor, or they have someone who is a sexual abuser on staff or pastor or deacon, you would turn that church in to the credentials committee. They have a phone line you can call. So there were a lot of turn-ins, a lot of ratting going on. And so they were dealing with all of these churches. It was apparent that there was an issue there. They had to research it. They had to go through, and sure enough, they found a lot of churches that had convicted sexual abusers as pastors, assistant, associate. I say a lot. It probably wasn't like 1,000, but there was several, and or who had them as a deacon and refused to get rid of them, refused to tell them to step down. So they voted to remove them from the convention if they wouldn't do it. And a lot of them said no. They said they were sorry or whatever. And so they kept them on. And so then the other thing was a women pastor, senior pastor. And turns out there were several churches, there were several that had them. And so they would bring those up to the convention. So the convention saw there was an issue. And then someone decided about 4 or 5 years ago to make an amendment so they wouldn't have to do that every year and bring up these churches. It would just be settled. This is what we mean. It did not go over well, the churches, because it wasn't specific. So people didn't understand if it meant you can't have a lady on staff at all. That would have impacted us, because Charlita was our worship leader. And she and I actually had a conversation about that hey, we don't know what's going to happen because we'll figure it out. But it wasn't very clear, so it didn't pass. So this year they made it very clear that they're just talking about the senior pastor, the preaching pastor, the teaching pastor. That's what they're talking about. And that's why it passed. Because if there was clarity, you got children's ministers who were ladies, you got some couples that are youth leaders, and you've got some ladies who are worship leaders. And so some of them were calling them ministers, some of them pastors, some of them called them directors. What does it got to be? All men? And it wasn't clear. So this is the first time they made it clear what they're talking about. And that's the only way it passed. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Third, they talked a lot about baptisms. Last year, they had 263,000 baptisms in Southern Baptist churches. That is not an all-time high by any stretch, but it was 5 years in a row with more baptisms than the year before. That is significant because that's the first time that's happened since Harry Truman was president. That's a long time ago. So you've not had a 5-year span where you had a growth in baptisms among Southern Baptist churches. Now, where are the baptisms coming from? They're really coming from New Work areas, New England area. They're coming from West. Really, you're not seeing a whole lot in the Bible Belt, but you're seeing it in areas that have not really had Southern Baptist churches there before. You're seeing an explosion of baptisms where New Work is. There's certainly baptisms happening here, but overall, it was an incredible number because in 5 years, they've had over 1 million baptisms in 5 years, which is great. That is that's wonderful news. God is blessing in that way, so they made sure to bring that up. The International Mission Board, we give to the International Mission Board for the Annie Armstrong Easter offering and through your cooperative program giving. They did a presentation. and said that every day 160,101 people die without Christ. Every day, 160,000 people generally die without the Lord. That's why the evangelism opportunity is so important. So, in 2025, they made mention that 2 million people heard the gospel around the world. That's really not a lot. 6,997 churches were planted around the globe. That's a very good number. And that 2,358 people groups were engaged. That's a great number. And so your International Mission Board is allowing their missionaries to serve and do and minister and impact cultures, to have almost 7,000 churches planted. That's not counting churches in the United States. That doesn't count in that. Or in Canada. That's all across the world. You had almost 7,000 churches planted. That's a really great number. So that means it's a new work in a new place where God's blessed. And that's including 2,358 people groups. So the International Mission Board is doing a great job with your money and your resources, going out into places that have never heard the gospel and making sure they're known. So when it gets to Christmas time and you have an opportunity to give to the Lottie Moon Christmas offering, what an investment that is. It's working. As you give, you're helping missionaries do what they're called to do. And they also have what's called a sending celebration. What that typically is they have all their missionaries that are going overseas there at the convention. Every one of them. And so those that are going to areas where it's not illegal to be a Christian, so you're talking about Mexico and Japan and Thailand and different places like that, they were at the mics telling who they were, where they were going. People were praying for them. And then there were about 53 missionary couples going to places around the world where it was illegal to be a Christian. They had a white like a white cover, and the people would show up behind it. You could only see their silhouette. Then they had a different voice. It wasn't their voices reading a statement about what they're doing and kind of where they're going without giving a specific place. They'll say South Asia or Central Asia or something like that, they would say. And, pray for me, pray for our kids as we go, we leave our parents as we go. So they went through it's really a moving presentation of all those missionaries that after that convention are about to get on a plane and go to another country. It's very difficult. So that was interesting and a blessing. Then the North American Mission Board also had a presentation where they told us that 699 churches were planted in the United States in 2025. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's the most churches planted in our country since 2016. In 10 years, that's more churches that's been planted since 10 years. And that means since 2010, there have been 12,000 churches planted in our country, which is a great thing. In fact, we were working with one of those church plants that was a North American Mission Board plant in Albuquerque. That's one of the churches that were planted, one of those 12,000 that was planted since 2010. And at the Annie Armstrong Easter offering, $71.1 million were given. That is the second largest Annie Armstrong Easter offering ever. So people went above and beyond in giving and making sure that our missionaries are covered. Now also, the missionaries who go, they need tools. And there is a part of the North American Mission Board that deals with evangelism. And so there is an app on your phone that I've had for a long time, but I did not know they had updated it. And it is a remarkable update. It's called Life on Mission. It is free. It doesn't cost you anything. But if you download that app, it has 3 things on it. One thing it's always had, which is what's called the 3 circles. It is a very visual way to share the gospel. The second is a way called Best News, the Best News. So it It's a gospel, very simple gospel presentation you can show on your phone. But one thing that got the most attention was the Gospel Coach. This is something that's brand new. It's an AI platform where you can download that app and you can click if you want to do it easy, intermediate, or hard, and you can share the gospel with an AI and it will evaluate how you share it and give you ways to improve how you share the gospel. So you would click on easy. This is what it says. I'm here to help you practice evangelism conversations. You choose a conversation partner and a scenario, and then we role play a discussion about faith. And it says, who would you like to practice a conversation with? Choose from the following. And you get to choose. You can choose a Mormon, a Muslim, an atheist, an agnostic, a Jehovah's Witness, a Hindu, a Jewish person, and there's a category that just says, surprise me. And so they'll be adding. So you click on that, and you type a message, and the AI will respond as if it's one of those religions. And it will kind of, counter with you as you're typing out what you want to say. They'll counter and help you to develop in your mind how to share the gospel with one of these. It is a fascinating tool, and it's free. Anybody can do it. So if you want to learn how to share the gospel, you can do it by using your smartphone and using this free app where you can just type in and it will coach you. So like I said, it has easy, which is, it's dealing with something they don't really push back that much, or hard. They got all the info and they will push back, and you don't, there's no downside to it, because if you quote unquote don't lead someone to Jesus, as it were, in that context, they give you ways for you to improve. If you would have said this, that would have helped. If you would have talked about this, that would have helped. You need to learn more about this area to share the gospel. It's great. Any questions about that? It's called Life on Mission. It's free, and it's just an incredible app. So I think everybody ought to get it. And for nothing else than the Gospel Coach, where you just sit you sit on the back porch, take your phone, and just kind of type it out, and it's just see what happens. I mean, you can't fail because it's not real; it's AI, but it can help you. Who knew that you could use AI to help you learn how to share the gospel better? So it's interesting, isn't it? Then there was another segment in the convention that was about disability ministry. It's something they've been working on for a few years, which is dealing with those who are disabled in some way, whether it's autism, whether it's you can just name any kind of disability, blindness or anything. And they've really come up with a very far-reaching platform to help churches and ministries grow in serving those with disabilities. They said there was 1.3 billion people on the earth with a disability. It was the largest unreached people group in the world, if you use that context. If you were to put every single person with a disability in a country, it'd be the third largest country in the world behind China and India. So there's a resource. And so they talked about how 9% of churches in a survey said they were equipped for people with disabilities. But when they surveyed people with disabilities and their families, that number was not near that high. The number was extremely low. Because you have someone who has a child or a loved one with severe disability of autism or something else, they don't feel comfortable coming into a church and with someone who's vocal or animated or what have you. There are tools that they're going to be developing to help churches put together ministries, because it opens up an avenue to serve your community that most churches don't have. And there's even going to be grants for churches. if they wanted to build a disability area. There are going to be grants that those churches can get if they want to. I didn't even know this existed, which was a universal changing table. I didn't even know there was a thing where if you have to change an adult or you have to change a child, it's something that you can put anybody on it and change them. So it was something I'd never even heard of. But every single part of the Southern Baptist Convention, North American Mission Board, International Mission Board, Lifeway, Executive Committee, every area was going to implement ministry categories for disability ministry. It was a task force that was formed and served for a year and came up with recommendations, and it passed overwhelmingly. There'll be some more information coming out on that in the future, but that is something that surely is lacking in a lot of churches. For example, there is a church that I know of, a good friend of mine, Jackie Cannell. He pastors Eden Westside Baptist Church in Pell City. And when he preaches, he has an interpreter who interprets to the deaf community. And there are, in some services, up to 50 to 60 to 70 people who come who are deaf. And so they don't have a church to go to. They can't hear. And so as he's preaching, they have two interpreters. One does the first half of the sermon, one does the second half. And so Brother Jackie's preaching here, the interpreter's to the side. There is a section for deaf people to sit. Things like that, which really impact a community in a great way, whatever the need is. So they're going to be really promoting that. You're going to see a lot more about that. Any questions about any of that? Okay. The final thing I had was they released the 2027 VBS theme, which is Take Flight, Trusting God's Faithfulness Above All. It is an aviation and flying theme. There'll be airplanes from every sailing in Southern Baptist Convention churches. It is God is faithful no matter what, and it's based on Psalm 100, verse 5. So they always release the new theme a year ahead of time. So it'll be, you'll see, Oriental Trading magazines for next year, it'll be airplanes everywhere. It'll be just airplanes and pilot gear and all that stuff. So that's going to be the next year's theme. And speaking of that, our Vacation Bible School is Illumination Station, and we start very soon. I believe it's the 22nd, right? That we start, which is a week from Monday. And so you want to make sure you think about that. But Lifeway has already prepared next year's. In fact, at the convention, they already enabled you to buy the promo pack for next year's Bible School. You can already get it and start getting ready for next year. It's already prepared. Anyway, that was the main things from the Southern Baptist Convention, and I think as an SBC church, you needed to know that. That's important for you to know. You may not go home and it just stirs your thoughts for a week, but you give to the Southern Baptist Convention. Whenever you give in the offering, part of that money goes to the cooperative program, and that money pays for the things that we're talking about. And you're funding those things, and so you need to know what you're funding and why you're funding them. But everything went well. There weren't a lot of fights at all. Sometimes it gets kind of testy, but it really didn't this year. The only thing they really fussed about, was they had a motion they try to have a convention out west every 5 years. And so they had a recommendation for one in 2032 and 2037 in Anaheim, California. And all the country-speaking people did not like that. They said, we can't afford that. Why are you making us go out there to Anaheim? And so all the people out west said, hey, that's great. I don't have to fly all the way to the south. So they, of course, affirmed both of those. They'd be going to Anaheim. But that was a little controversy there because people really didn't want to do that. And then finally, the resolutions, they really don't tell them I said this, but it really doesn't matter. It's just nobody remembers last year's, the years before, but that really wasn't anything to write home about. But that's what happened. Any questions about your Southern Baptist Convention? Okay. Sir. Oh, you're welcome. Appreciate that, brother. They never released it, but it may be in a report online. I can look it up real quick, see what they say. It does. They have not released those numbers yet. I guess because it's so recent, they don't have it all yet, I guess. But they did not release those numbers. What's that now? Oh, no, I hope not. I hope not. But if so, it might get a lot more dollars there at the end. You never know. Anyway, yes. I think so. They did have a budget, and a good question. A few years ago, they had a lot of lawsuits. And the lawsuits were about sexual abuse. So the convention waived their legal protections so that people could tell what they knew and not have to say, well, I can't say anything because of this legal shield. The legal shield was gone. Well, that resulted in a lot of lawsuits, multi-million-dollar lawsuits. And then some people felt like they were falsely accused, so they also sued. And it just got to be a mess. So that ate up a lot of financing. And they had to move money around to pay those hundreds of millions of dollars. So that, or not hundreds, but several $1 million. That hurt them a lot. But as far as the giving was concerned, that was not affected. The giving has kind of gone up year to year, but that did have an impact. It's a good question. Anybody else? All right. You need to know this stuff. It may be like snooze fest to you, but it's important things to know. And hopefully they will be something that will be encouraging in a lot of ways, especially the numbers of baptisms. All right. With that being said, I want to thank everybody for watching tonight, and we're going to move into our prayer time and get involved with that. And just let me know when we're